Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 2024 Latinx Kidlit Book Festival. It is such an honor to be here with all of you this morning. Thank you for spending some time with us for this amazing, amazing conversation. Before we get started and before I introduce our wonderful guests, our stars of the show, I want to remind you to please read our anti-harassment policy that's in the chat box, please. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the Latinx Kidlit Book Festival's YouTube channel. And if you are a school, classroom, librarian, or educator joining us, our school visit fund is back. You can enter to win a free visit from a Latinx author or illustrator for your classroom or library. You can find the link to the entry form in the chat. So now it is the moment we've all been waiting for. I want to introduce myself very briefly. I am Dr. Tracey Flores, and I am an associate professor of language and literacy studies at the University of Texas at Austin, a former elementary teacher, 2nd grade to 6th grade. English language arts is my sweet spot. And I am also the founder of a program called Somos Escritoras. We are writers, which is a space that invites young Latina girls in middle school and high school to use art, writing, theater as forms of self-expression and self-examination. And we're also really proud to be a community sponsor of this event. And I also now want to start by saying I am so happy to be here with both of you. And I am going to start by introducing Meg first. Meg Medina is the Library of Congress's 2023-2024 National Ambassador for Young People's Literature and the author of the Newbery Medal winning book, Mercy Suarez Changes Gears. She is the author of award-winning young adult novels and picture books, including Evelyn Del Rey is Moving Away, illustrated by Sonia Sanchez, Mango, Abuela, and Me, illustrated by Angela Dominguez, which was a Pura Prix Author and Illustrator Award honor book, and Pia Isa Wants a Car, one of my favorites, illustrated by Claudia Munoz, which won the Ezra Jack Keats New Writer Award. The daughter of Cuban immigrants, she lives in Richmond, Virginia. Thank you for being here today, Meg.
I'm so happy to be here with you, Tracey. Hi.
And I now want to introduce Sonia Manzano. When you think of Sonia Manzano, you immediately think of children and television. Her most recent accomplishment was creating a children's program. I gotta stop, sorry. I've read this, and I'm like, now we're here. Her most recent accomplishment was creating a children's program, Alma's Way, for PBS Kids. It has won 2 Imagine Awards for Best Youth Programming, a 2022 Emmy nomination for Outstanding Writing for a Preschool Animated Program, and a 2023 NAACP nomination for an Image Award. But what Miss Manzano is best known for is performing the role of Maria. on Sesame Street for 44 seasons, where her work affected the lives of millions of parents and children and garnered her 2 Emmy Award nominations, in addition to the National Academy of Arts and Sciences Lifetime Achievement Daytime Emmy in 2016. As a writer for the show, she took home 15 Emmys. Also, Manzano recently received the 2022 Beacon Award from PBS. She is also the author of picture books No Dogs Allowed, A Box Full of Kittens, Miracle on 133rd Street, Built Together, The Lowdown on the High Bridge. Her scholastic young adult novels are The Revolution of Evelyn Serrano, Becoming Maria, Love and Chaos, and The South Bronx. Her most recent novel, Coming Up Cuban, set in 1959, follows the lives of 4 children who represent different intersections of race and class during the Cuban Revolution. Thank you for being here, Sonia.
Well, thank you. My pleasure. I didn't mean to make you cry, but
You have that effect on us.
You do.
But in a good way. In a good way.
Happy, nostalgic, really loving tears. So thank you.
Thank you.
It's the universal reaction, I think, to Sonia, to Maria, and just like it's such an expression of like our extreme gratitude for you.
Thank you, Meg. That's very nice of you to say.
So let's get started with some questions. I have some opening questions, like some warm-ups for us. And I would like to ask you and I know everyone watching wants to know, what's one song or artist that you both can't resist putting on your playlist right now? What is on your playlist?
Oh gosh, I guess I'll go first. I was quite taken with Beyonce's Cowboy album, Cowboy Carter, and I was just taken by that whole piece of work. I thought there were so many kind of nuances in it, so I was taken with her. With her version of old songs and her new songs too. Yeah,
absolutely. Such beautiful storytelling. Thank you, Meg.
Well, anyone who follows my endless Instagram channels knows that I go walking every morning. I walk for a couple of miles, and I have a go-to. I just put in my little library search thing, salsa essentials, and it comes up with this old school mix, and I walk faster and happier to all the old school salsa, from across so many different countries, from Colombia, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, etc. So that's always my go-to right now. So yeah, my walking soundtrack.
Yeah, can I add one thing? Sometimes when I walk, I listen to Prince, but I have to warn you, this music is so exciting. It makes me think I can really stop and really do sit-ups and really do all of this stuff. So a word of caution if you listen to Prince while you're exercising.
Yeah. Oh, the other danger sometimes is that, like, when I'm on a quiet street, I think if I just dance a little, no one will look. Right?
No.
So I have to really guard myself and not start dancing in the street, because I'm picturing all the children looking from the windows and their parents going, "She's lost her mind."
I'd like to hang out with her. She looks fun. And that's the power of those songs that can get us up and moving and put us in a good mood. And I also wanted to ask, and I should have asked this one first, how are you both doing today? How have you been? Like, what's on your mind?
Well, certainly we can't, particularly today, we're worried about the hurricane that's hitting southern Florida. So I'm certainly thinking about the well-being of all of those people. And you can't escape what's going on politically in the country with the election coming up, and people are thinking about it like I'm thinking about it, and certainly hoping that those who can vote and that young people make sure that they're heard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would say the same. And, the lens I often put on it also is, I'm very passionate about kids being able to choose the books that they read, and to make sure we have access to our books. And so, that is always like at the forefront of my mind, especially, during Banned Books Week and during Hispanic Heritage Month and so on. I feel like that issue feels so intense to me. So that's what's been on my mind, just making sure that we keep access and our freedoms. Yeah.
I had the pleasure of going to hear Judy Blume last night or the night before last in New York City. And that, and of course she was inspiring and wonderful. And she said, books have always been banned, but never in the legislature. I mean, it's always been like people, they have the right to ban, but it's never been part of the laws. So I thought that was an interesting observation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And as a teacher educator, these are all conversations I have with my future teachers and thinking about access to books and thinking about, our rights across, different spaces and in the world. And so I appreciate being in conversation about these important topics with all of you, with both of you, and to continue, as Meg said earlier, be rowing in the same direction. So thank you for that. I have a question about your journey into writing and to acting and to storytelling. You both have such rich backgrounds in creating and storytelling. And I wanted to know if you can share a little bit about your journey into writing and acting. What inspired you to pursue these paths? And how is your activism woven into this work? That's kind of a thick question. Your journeys. Let's hear about your journeys into writing and creating and acting.
Oh, should I go first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Story time.
Well, I guess what started me writing, to be frank, was another writer, Frank McCourt. When I read Frank McCourt's book, Angela's Ashes, which is an adult memoir about a terrible, terrible Irish American upbringing, and it was such a wonderful book in that it was sad, but it was also funny at the same time, and so loving and compassionate. And I happen to also have a tumultuous upbringing, but there was a lot of humor in it as well. So when I saw his example of pathos, I thought, oh, I might try to do that. And I did No Dogs Allowed, which is a picture book. It's like a memoirette. Everything that I write is something that happened to me. So he inspired me to write that because I felt I needed an outlet for creativity that wasn't being answered on Sesame Street anymore after 44 years.
Thank you.
And I'm trying to think of, so I came to writing late, right? I was already 40 which seems so young to me now, but it isn't really. But I came to writing late. I had been a teacher. I had written newspaper articles. I had done other things that I thought growing up were more secure, I guess, and things that, my family understood a little better. Like there was no one in my family, probably you're the same way, Sonia, who was a writer, right? Or who did these things. So it was hard to think of like an example. It was hard to pull examples from like my community or people I knew and so on. So I waited a long time. I did all other things, and I liked doing those other things. And the kids who are listening now will find that too. You're going to be good at so many things, right? But there will be something that makes your heart really feel full. And for me, it was telling story. And telling story that had to do with like the people I knew growing up, my tias, mi abuelos, the foods we ate, the troubles in our family, the joys in our family. And so, I sort of radically turned to writing the year I was 40. I like quit my job really quickly and I started writing. And that first year that you're writing and trying something new, like it's always scary when you try something new. You're worried. Should I be doing this? Who am I to do this? Yeah. What if I fail? All those things. But I wrote for a year and a half, and my husband Javier sort of, paid the bills while I was writing. And, slowly but surely, I didn't start out like a big meteor, like a big poof in the sky. Like people weren't saying, oh my God, she's arrived, like none of this. So it was very slow, little ascent. But I'm glad when I look back, I'm glad it happened that way because I got to make mistakes. I got to learn to be a better writer. And I got, the truth of it is that, working hard and keeping at it and not losing your courage when something is hard. Those ended up being very true things in my journey. Yeah.
I appreciate both of you, how you talked about, you both mentioned, like Sonia, you talked about you started writing as the writing started to feel like you needed another outlet beyond Sesame Street. And then Meg, how I think you were young when you started. You're still young. And so this was a career shift for you, like something that can be scary. But in hearing from both of you, thinking about the importance of, you want to do this, if you want to do these things that fuel your passions that you're maybe unsure about, or you don't have a model in your family or community to continue to try to do those things. I think that's a great message for, the students who are listening and the teachers, everyone who's listening.
Yeah. You could be the first at something.
Yes.
Right? You can bring that to your family. And then you think, like right now, I'm very excited to say that in February I'll become a grandmother for the first time. So I'm so excited. But like my grandchildren and my great grandchildren, like they'll be able to say there was a writer in our family. She wrote these books. So you can be the first. It's like you have to have courage.
Yes.
Because I think the thing, Sonia, about your life and your career that is so inspiring, because like your presence on Sesame Street and your books and so on gave courage, I think, to so many of us to say, just like you were looking at Frank McCourt.
Yeah.
You're not aware of or now you are, I'm sure, because we all tell you with tears in our eyes, right? That we looked to you in that same way. Like, I can do this. Sonia is showing me how.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I just put one foot in front of the other. When I got on Sesame Street, I remembered when I was a kid, I used to watch so much television, and I never saw anybody who looked like me or lived in the city. Almost, it was almost like everything was the suburbs, and I used to wonder where those people were that I saw on television. So that when I got on Sesame Street, I always remembered myself as a kid. And I remembered how I needed to see somebody who looked like me. So I wanted to be that for kids who were watching. It's like I healed myself through time and television. And I, for any aspiring writers out there who are listening to us, I always go to what happened to me as a kid and what I remembered and what I used to like. Did I like the family coming over? So then you could write about that. Did I not like the family coming over? You could write about that. It's always something that really happened to me. And you don't overcome a terrible childhood to succeed. You remember it and you bring it with you, and then you expand upon it. And either you're an actor remembering your feelings, or you're a writer and you write those feelings and observations down.
Yeah, that's really true. That's really true. And I'm remembering our old shows, because you and I are fairly contemporary. Remember the Romper Room?
Yes.
This lady, it was a show just for kids, Romper Room, and all the kids would gather at the end, and she had this fake mirror, right? The kids think it's real, but it's like she's looking in the mirror and she'd say, I see Michelle and Linda and Bobby, and I never heard her looking for Maria or Jose Manuel, ni nada.
Right.
And so, yeah, they're the little things that we're missing.
Right. The little observations. Exactly.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And this is a wonderful segue into what I'm going to invite you both to do next. And Sonia, I just, in thinking about Sesame Street and thinking about what you were just sharing about that time on Sesame Street and how you were able to, bring your childhood and heal yourself. And also something that really is, I want to make sure I say, is that you brought your whole self to that space. That was you were there. Like that was you. That was, And that's really powerful for us to see you being you in that role. And so I just wanted to make sure that I brought that into the space. And I also want to invite you, Sonia, if you wouldn't mind reading a little bit from your book.
I just happen to have it right here.
Perfect.
All right. If you say so.
Yes, right. Yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. This is from my memoir, Becoming Maria, Love and Chaos in the South Bronx. And even though it has nothing to do about Sesame Street, it's what I just said, my journey of my life too. And this is a teacher took me to see the movie West Side Story, the first one, and I was quite taken by that. And I guess I was in the fourth grade. So I'll read. The sudden quiet stirs me, and I look up from my lap to the screen. I see the schoolyards, the fences, the buildings and candy stores I've seen in all my neighborhoods, but here they look different, sharp, clear, bright, and beautiful. What is this that I'm watching? There's something different about the familiar indoor scenes as well. But here, a guitar leaning against the wall looks romantic. The shadows of holy crosses on the homemade altars are mysterious. I quickly give religion a second thought, and seeing an actress wearing a cross daintily on her chest nails it for me. I too want to wear a sexy cross between my breasts. The colors I see are hot pink and turquoise and purple, but they are bold and important and meaningful and not just loud. I stare at the screen with some mental distance so I can figure it out, but there is not too much figuring to do, because when the actors sing and dance on the roof about being in America, my heart takes over and begins to beat faster and faster until it makes a racket in my ears that roars. My soul or some power inside me begins to rise, and I panic. Will there be enough room in my body for this new feeling? Make way, a voice inside me shouts. I stand up taller because I can't accommodate this emotion. It will spill out and explode, maybe even hurting those around me. My eyes open wider so I can see everything better. My ears pick up all the musical sounds flowing, crashing into each other in the air. And I wonder, how long have I been sleeping? My God, how long have I been unconscious and missing everything all around me? Asleep, like a drugged person. Like Dennis the junkie nodding out on 3rd Avenue. Is Ma right? Am I always daydreaming? Asleep, yes, but daydreaming, no, not really. Daydreams are possibilities. I never daydream anything I think could actually happen. I didn't know what things were possible. So I think that thank you, seeing the the regular things in my house and in my neighborhood in this beautiful presentation made me realize that beauty was everywhere. It's we had guitars leaning against the wall. My whole upbringing, and I never thought it was a beautiful image. So that is taking a little bit of your truth. Once again, if there's any young writers, you take a little bit of your truth and you make it big, and you polish it, and you blow on it and make it shinier. And I think that's what this movie did visually in my neighborhood. I'm saying, what's my neighborhood doing on television, on in the movies? I think it's what art is.
And you captured it so you could feel your feelings in that chapter and that moment as you were describing what you were seeing, like making that familiar strange, like this. So
Exactly.
Colors, and then your reaction just coming just out of your eyes, and just this whole experience of like, what can I do?
Yes, and it made me feel I could separate myself from the troubles, from the troubles around me, because there's this thing that was up here, and so that was a relief. Writing is something you can do by yourself. Whereas television, you need 100 people to want to do the same thing you want to do, and like that. But writing is something you can do by yourself, and it's very comforting.
Yes.
I feel. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Meg, can you read for us too?
I can read for you. And you know what? I'm going to upvote just what Sonia said about writing from your real life. So here's my new picture book. Let's see if I could put it here. It's called No More Señora Mimi, or en español puede ser No Más Señora Mimi. So here's the thing, Sonia. The year I was 5, my babysitter's name was Mimi. This lady who lived in our neighborhood. And the year that I was like 5 or 6, my mother said to me, Oye, viene tu familia. Your family's coming. Mimi's not going to be your babysitter anymore. Va a ser abuela. She's going to take over. So I went to Mimi and I said, Oye, lo siento, but you're out. You know, you're fired. I have a grandmother coming. And so I always remembered that because Mimi stayed in my life. She became best friends with abuela. And there was something in that stayed with me. And today, I think a lot of the kids out there know that we have, you know, so many kids go to daycare or have babysitters. Like that's a fact of life. And in this country, many in-home babysitters are brown and black women, Latina women doing this work. And so I wrote this book sort of thinking about them as well. So I'm going to try to read it and show you the pictures if I can. It won't look so good there, pero a ver. Ooh, let's go this way. Señora Mimi lives upstairs in apartment 4C. Every day, Mommy drops me off on her way to work. Señora Mimi has a 2-tooth baby named Nelson and a no-tooth dog named Pancho, who likes buttered crackers as much as I do. Remember buttered crackers for breakfast, Sonia and Tracey? Please hurry, Ana. Señora Mimi says this morning, you'll be late for school. She clips Wiggly Nelson into his stroller and searches everywhere for Pancho's leash. But I am too excited to finish eating, so I slip my dish in the sink. Abuela is moving in tonight. The pink bedroom next to the kitchen will be hers. I've already put my best stuffed bear on the pillow to welcome her. Then from now on, Abuela will watch me while Mommy's at work, I say. She is staying forever. That's right, Señora Mimi says. Now, anda, little one, we'll have to go corre to get to school before the bell. Señora Mimi puts on her sweater, the striped one that she made for me, the one that looks like the one she made for me. She waits while I sing the shoelace song and tie my sneakers, rabbit ears, and double knots, just the way she showed me. Vamos, Ana, she says. We're almost out of time. And I'm going to stop right there. Because what happens, of course, is a shift in Ana. She's so excited about Abuela. But, you know, sometimes when we gain something, like an Abuela, we have to lose something else. And so that's the story. How is she going to manage losing something and gaining something at the same time? So that's it. I mean, and I think you're right, Sonia. I think that was the lesson I learned as a writer, and especially as a Latina writer. Like, we think our lives are so ordinary, just as in your book, right? Like, what's so special about this, about Tia, about the neurotic thing, about the little saints, todo eso. But suddenly we do see the beauty in it. And like the job is elevating it.
Yes.
Right. And saying, these are these beautiful women caring for you.
Right.
This is this beautiful tradition of Abuela coming, etc. So, yeah.
I always say that's beautiful, Megan. That's certainly, we like to see characters in struggle. What should I do? Why do I feel this? That's what all theater is, you know, a character in struggle. You want to see, oh, well, how are they going to figure this out? So that's a wonderful way to write in. And many people have had different babysitters, I'm sure. But what's special is the way you saw it. You know, that's what makes writing unique to to kids. And once again, if they're aspiring writers, it's all about how you see it.
And all the troubles the other thing, how you see your own troubles, right? Because when I'm writing a book, I don't know if you do this also, like with your picture books and so on, you're asking yourself, like, what are the troubles that a person has when they're 5 and 6 and 7 and 8?
Right,
like you pick the
right.
different thing. And that's what's interesting. I think that's where the connection is, like being able to really see it from their perspective. Like your friend moves away, or
I love that. Yes, I love
all of those things. Like pick the thing that it feels really. Are you going to be first, the line leader today, or not? Picture book.
That is real.
Yeah.
And I appreciate how both of you really don't forget the moments in your life, the joy, but also those moments that are challenging, and the ways that you write about those experiences to really reach the reader where they're at in that moment in their life. And I wanted to ask you, and this, you both write also about your own experiences, but women and girls. And in my work with girls, I'm always like looking for those characters that are complex and multidimensional, like many different ways to be Latina. Like it's just not one way. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think your stories and how do you think your stories and characters can empower young Latina girls and women, Latinx girls and women?
Well, my last book, Coming Up Cuban, I'm not Cuban. I'm Puerto Rican. I mean, I didn't realize how misleading that title was going to be. My own sister came up to me and said, I didn't know you were Cuban.
I'm pretty sure that we would grant you. We'd grant you special permission, but okay.
She's a smart aleck. But anyway, that's the story about what happened to 4 kids during the Castro's revolution. And there's 2 girls in it. It's 2 boys and 2 girls. And so one came to the United States with her family, one came alone. And then I started thinking, well, what happened to kids who stayed there? And I kind of got into everything Cuban, and I read a lot about it, and I was very interested about it. And also what stays with me is that I guess I thought as a Puerto Rican that my story was every Puerto Rican story.
Mm-hmm.
Parents came here after World War II, and they were born here, and yada, yada, yada. And subconsciously, I thought, well, that's the Puerto Rican story. But you know what? After I did all that research on these Cuban children, I said, no, there's lots of stories. And if there's so many stories about that, there must be a million stories about Puerto Ricans that I haven't even touched upon. The ones who came in the 20s, the ones who came, in the 60s, or the ones who stayed there. And certainly the journey of girls is utmost in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I find it interesting that writing about another group of people made me examine my own. And, I'm working on a book now about musicians, which was really more boy-centered at that time. But I'm remembering how much I liked it, but I didn't like that it was so boy-centered.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even think of that consciously at that time. So... Por ahí vamos.
Yeah.
So that's the road.
I can't wait to read it. That's going to. That's funny that you wrote about Cubans. I wrote about Pura Belpré, who was, of course, an Afro-Puerto Rican librarian. What are we doing? They mixed us up. They should have just switched us over. But girls. So I have no choice. I think I was raised by women, right?
Mm-hmm.
My grandfathers died when I was young. My uncle did also. My mother and father were divorced. So I was raised by women who talked nonstop, who told stories nonstop, who were in la lucha and struggling with, minimum wage jobs and just like trying to grow, raise daughters in New York City. It was, a lot. And, I got to just see what strength looks like, right? And what being a hero looks like inside ordinary people, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm always looking for those kinds of stories. And I love writing, strong girls, and I think it's really valuable for boys to read these stories as well, right? We've read decades of, how many stories of strong boys and right, adventure stories of boys have I read and loved? So I think the same is true, in reverse. That's an important thing, right? That we not think of it as only girl stories, right? But stories that feature girls, that appeal to everyone. But I think like this notion of you know, just writing the lives the way they look, like sometimes it's a single family that's headed by mommy, right? And mommy's working. Sometimes, it's just writing the women and the girls the way they really are. That's really where you see, the strength of things, right? When you really just look at people the way they are, write the truth. And that's I think the connection. But I've been really, it's exciting when girls especially feel seen or connected or whatever to something you've written. That makes me feel really good.
I remember my mother, I was a little girl, and she was one of the few women who worked outside of the home. She worked as a seamstress in a factory. And I thought that she, went to work because she wanted to get away from us. And and so I asked her, and I must have been about 8 or 9.
Mhm.
And then she quickly stopped everything and looked in my eyes, and she said, "Oh, no, 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 no." She said, "If I would love to stay home with you, but I can't because if I did, we couldn't make ends meet. We can't make it on your dad's salary, so I have to." So I felt like I was so happy that she told me the truth
Yeah.
as she was, and that I really felt like I was part of the tribe. I could, I was sorry that she couldn't stay home with me, but I understood why things were going on. I always tell people, tell kids what's going on, tell them, and they'll feel better about it. But that was a real strength in my mother that I didn't appreciate. I appreciate her more and more as I get older.
Yeah, me too. And I think you're right about the telling the truth. I always felt like, I don't know if they were like aware, if I was just eavesdropping or qué, pero I feel like I always had like a ringside seat to like the adult life, right? Like, who was having conflict with who, and that, whatever they mean thing they were going to say about my dad or whatever. Like I got it all, right? I got it all in my ears. But like it matured me in some way, right? Like I had this like little window into what the adult life was, what it was going to take, right? To survive, and the things that were on their mind. Like I don't know, it was probably I heard some things that with the American side of my brain, I think, oh no, that would be inappropriate for young people, but that wasn't a thing, right? It wasn't a thing. You were in this small space in a small apartment, and you were going to hear it all, right? It was all for consumption. But I think you're right. Like sometimes we worry so hard about like protecting kids about this or the other, but they they like to be told the truth. They like to be included in what's happening in the family. That's important for them to be able to have that as well.
It really is. It's important for me to make sure that we do that for my daughter, so that there's no like surprises. And how brave of you, Sonia, to ask your mom that question. Like there's things I didn't ask my mom. Like I still like even now I'm like, oh, and like to ask that question, that
Yeah.
interaction. And it's in your book too. Yeah.
Yes, right. I also asked her once why was there war?
Hmm.
That's a
Bueno, that's going to take a pot of coffee.
She simply said, war happens when one group of people wants something that another group of people have. Punto. I mean, I thought that was brilliant. I mean, she broke it down to me in a really basic manner. I mean, I was in elementary school, and I'm glad she gave it a shot, you know.
Isn't it amazing how we appreciate our moms and dads like over time?
Yeah.
Like when you the things that drive us crazy about them when we're little, and then as we get older, we start to just sort of see all the ways
Oh, I get it
that
now.
they loved us. Yeah,
Yeah.
all the ways they loved us, and more importantly, all the ways that they did their best with what they had available to them.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Absolutely. I wanted to take a question from the chat. Carla Espana, who's in from New York. Hi, Carla. We love you.
Hola,
She wanted to know what's one comment from a child or a reader on your school. Here it is. What's a comment from a child or reader on a school visit that impacted you and why?
Oh. I guess this is a pretty shallow comment, but kids always ask me, like, or often ask me, "Are you rich?"
or how old are you? Right, both those two.
Or, you know, how much money do you make? So I always, I think it's an opportunity to kind of clear something up, and I say, well, compared to my parents, I am so rich. You have no idea how rich I am. Compared to J-Lo, I'm really, really poor. So
That gives it that truth.
I hope that sort of makes them understand that it's all relative.
Mhm.
Yeah. I would say, I've had so many beautiful exchanges. One that sticks out for me was so Medici Suarez changes gears is of course the story of Medici Suarez and tangling in middle school, but also tangling with changes in her grandfather as he he enters the last stages of dementia or Alzheimer's. So I had a mother and a daughter come through one of my signing lines, and they said that they had read the book together because the girl's grandfather was going through this, and that they weren't sure they could read it. Like they were afraid to read it, but they decided to read it together to help themselves get through and be able to read whatever was going to be in those pages. And like that's the beautiful thing of signing lines and seeing your work out in the world. Like there's the book that you write that you think is the book, but then when it goes out, right, it becomes a million books, right? It becomes a different book for every reader. And that felt good to me. It felt like my book was doing what I hope books do, which is help you, right? They can be funny things. They can help you feel better and laugh and things like that. That's an important thing that books can do, entertain us. But the other thing that they can do is help us understand something about ourselves or about something hard that we're living through. And so I felt like my book was doing a job out there that I had always hoped it would do.
I'm always surprised at how different things in books affect people differently.
Yeah.
I guess if there's any teachers out there, I direct this to you. When I was a kid, I loved Charlotte's Web, the wonderful Charlotte's Web, but I didn't like Wilbur. And I didn't like Wilbur because, here Charlotte was doing all the work, making the webs, having the kids, catching the flies, and she had to take care of him too.
The big crybaby.
That big crybaby. So now I know that the reason was she reflected the women in my life that did all the work constantly, and sometimes still had to take care of a fragile male. And so that was my perspective on that book. So I think when teachers are sharing a book with their students, if a kid sees this other thing and takes it off into left field, doesn't mean they're not embracing the book. They just saw something that was in their own lives that has nothing to do with the general feeling of the book. So teachers, be ready for kids to go, I see this, I see this, I see this, I see this, I see this. And that's a good sign.
That's a good point.
The beauty of the book. And I will never see the book again the same. I love perspective.
Poor Wilbur. but I see what you mean now. Now I may have to reread this book now.
So. I think I'm going to reread it too. It's such a great book, like all great books. They seem to change the older you get. As great children's books like Judy Blume's book, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. It keeps changing every time I read it.
Yeah.
I just reread that and I read it completely different. Right? I was like, wow, I didn't even catch that.
I know. I didn't catch that in all of these spiritual struggles the family was having. She was the only one with any spirit, with any spiritual inclination.
Yeah. But, isn't that the interesting part of how we read the same book at different time periods in our life? I like that about books also. Like you think that it's pen, it's ink on paper and it's forever, but it keeps changing also.
Yeah.
It keeps changing with each reader and with whatever the reader is bringing in. I love that. Yeah.
As we're talking about books, and earlier when we first started, we talked about, as you're talking about these different ways we come to books in different places in our lives, and every reader comes with a different experience. I wanted to take another question from the chat. Martina Banks asks, if you had to explain the importance of reading banned books reading banned books to an adult who maybe doesn't quite understand their value, what would you say?
Well, I'm sorry that they're being titled as banned books as opposed to just good books. Certainly people who want to ban books should read the book before they decide that it's banned. And I'm doing a show on PBS Kids called Alma's Way. And this is a show for PBS Kids. And somehow that book, and there's books that reflect this little show on PBS. Yes, that's it. And that was on a list of questionable books because it was about a Nuyorican girl. I mean, it was.
Yeah.
So, there's just kind of point out that it's not, there are nuances that we're struggling with. And it's not black and white as I think people who ban books see things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say my thing is this, that there are just so many ways to be a human being, so many different experiences. And just look around your classroom, or around your neighborhood. You'll see all kinds of people, and they all come with stories. And those stories, make their way into books. If you're reading a book that you don't like, for sure, close it and find another book that you do like. But it's very different to say that if you don't like a book, no one should be able to read that book, because that is somebody else's story.
Yes.
And when we cut people away from stories or from seeing themselves, like we need to see Alma, we need to see Milagros, we need to see LGBTQ youth, because they exist as people, right? We are here. And so that's what I think. I think it's really important to be able to not, put librarians in these terrible positions where they're name called, or teachers, or make teachers feel afraid because they have a book on their shelf or something like that. Like, those books are there, right? Because the people are there. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to read the book you don't like. You can choose another. But I think we need to love each other and respect each other enough to allow for everybody's experience to be there. And it's hard right now because it's become a political movement and things like that, which is just really clouds the water. But I really feel so passionately about that, and also just the injury that it causes people when you say that who they are or what they know to be true in their lives is wrong or dirty or dangerous or un-American. I had the same experience you had. Like you had Alma for a while. Mango Abuela and Me was on a questioned list in Pennsylvania, I think it was. And I have a novel in a young adult, a teenage novel in Florida, Clay County, Florida, that has been banned. And so, for what? Because it says the things about our perspectives, like that seems silly to me.
And the stories really, stories about other people bring us together. I remember reading a book entitled 15 by Beverly Cleary. And the girl's life could not have been more different than mine. She was a suburban girl in the middle of the country and middle class, but there's a moment in the book where she makes her mother angry, and she tries to make up for it by setting the table without being told, to sort of take the edge off her mother's anger. And I remember doing the same exact kind of stuff. When I would make my mother angry, I'd mop the floor before she asked me, so she could, kind of distract her a little bit. So all of a sudden, I'm doing the same thing that this other girl was doing, who's so different from me. But then I realized we're not that different. We do the same thing to distract our mothers when they're angry with us. So that's what you're losing when you ban a book. You're cutting off a human connection that might make us understand each other.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the most fun things. When somebody who reads my book, not Latino, right? Somebody, from Wisconsin or from wherever, right? Just another place and another cultural background. And they go, oh my gosh, it was just like fill in the blank and the connection. And that's really fun because there are things that are really universal to all of us, even as we do things really specifically, like each family, each culture, each religion, like all of that. But we want friends. We want to be loved. We have troubles in our family. We fall in love with others like that. So, yeah.
And I just wanted to say this back to both of you about the connections, and the books are there because the people are there. I just wanted to make sure that we have that in that space to close that part of the conversation. The books are there because the people are there. Our lives are all different ways. And I'm going to do like a speed round right now because we're getting near the end. And I wanted to ask you some closing consejos, some closing advice. And this could probably be the last question because I think that maybe it could go. What advice would you like to give to your younger self?
I wish I was less. I was more patient. I was so impatient, but the fact is that I'm still impatient. I want things to be done yesterday, and even though it's terrible to be impatient, and you're exasperated with people who aren't moving as fast as I want them to move. It's good to be impatient too. So it's gotten me a lot of where I am because of my impatience. So I think you just have to temper those qualities. I wish I could temper them. I'm doing a better job of it now than certainly I did then. But I do have a stick to it. I
Mm.
stick to things like a dog with a bone. It can be really annoying, but I think that's how I became a writer. You will get better if you keep writing. There's no doubt about that. If you look at it the next day and then rewrite it and look at it again and rewrite it. So
Sounds like persistence to me.
yes, I'm very
Very.
persistent. Yeah, but in a good way. I
Yes.
hope.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
To my younger self, I would say something that I still say to myself, right? Believe it or not, I'm a person with a lot of self-doubt. So I worry a lot. Is it going to be good? Is it good? Am I up to the task? Am I going to disappoint people? Have I done enough for the community, for example? Have I done enough? Like it feels like I'm always, I'm in that place, that I really want to do as much as possible. Like for the ambassadorship, it has certainly been that, what haven't I done yet? Like, what do I need to really leave for the next Latina who's going to be ambassador someday, et cetera, and all the ones coming after, all of that. But that self-doubt
Yeah.
can also be crippling, right? You can be up in the middle of the night thinking about all the ways you're not enough or all the mistakes you've made and things like that. So I would say to my younger self, be kind to yourself. You're doing the best you can. Keep going. That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your both of you open and honestly answering so honestly and openly about what you would tell your younger self and how you're still, working through these things that you know, experience as a young girl.
Sure, because being impatient certainly made me dismissive of come on, what's the matter with you of people, and I'm sorry about that. And but like I said, we continue these struggles that we have as children, even into adulthood. But we give ourselves breaks,
Yeah,
as we should.
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think I have time for one more question. Last question. In thinking about the youth out there listening, the teachers, all the aspiring writers, what do you want to tell them about telling their own stories? What advice do you have?
I think to understand that every story is valid. And if you tell a personal story, you will reach somebody. Somebody will relate to it in some way that you had not expected, and those stories are very welcome. Um, I'll just flip it to television. I love the stories in Reservation Dogs about a series about Native American children in Oklahoma, and I didn't know about those stories. I didn't know uh, uh, that lifestyle. And I love another show called Atlanta about African American uh, families and hip hop culture. I didn't know that either. So every story you tell, whether it end up on television or not necessarily, obviously in books, will enlighten other people.
Mm.
And so wherever you're from, I want to know about you. I want to know what you think and feel. I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. And I'm going to say that when you're looking around young writers for stories to write, you don't have to look far. I think you need to look at really ask yourself some questions. Who are the people who make you laugh? What are the things that you remember that bothered you in kindergarten? Why do you remember them? And just use those as the beginning. Then you can change it. You make it you're like Frankenstein. You
Yeah.
add things, you can make it a fantasy, but like you start with the thing that really happened. That's one way. Because that way you're starting from something that mattered to you And what matters to you, Matt, is there for a reason.
Yes.
And that's the connection.
Yes. I could listen and to this. I could talk with you both all day long. And I just want to thank you so much for being here this morning, for all that you are, all that you do for all of us, and the path that you're paving and that you've paved for so many. I just thank you so much for your consejos, your stories, for just being you. And I want to thank everyone out there for attending this special session at the Latinx Kidlit Book Festival. Please make sure you subscribe and have a wonderful, wonderful Friday day.
Adios. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.